So we have been here this morning, right? Ah. And my job as your training manager is to help you understand by the next 10 or 15 minutes, what is my next step, right? As a chief of interpretation and education. So we're going to start to answer this question. What are audience-centered experiences? Are some of you still wondering what we're talking about? What are audience-centered experiences? It's okay, you don't have to raise your hand, but I imagine you're out there. Being audience-centered is a mindset and a practice. And I think we've been talking a lot this morning about the mindset and not so much about the practice. So that's what we're going to dive into right now. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of the day, is on the practice, really examining that. After lunch, you're going to be doing an off-site to the Durham Museum. You're going to get a chance to experience facilitated dialogue. You're going to look at some exhibits. You're going to really examine the practice of being audience-centered. All right, leading up to there. So we have this spectrum of audience-centered experiences. And this is kind of a working concept. This is something that Becky and I have been talking about. We've been reading rereading Nina Simon's Participatory Museums book, awesome read, helps to understand this whole realm of being audience-centered. So we have, on one end, we have didactic programs, which is knowledge base is the outcome that you're looking for out of a didactic program, is knowledge transfer, right? All the way to the other side, which is co-created experiences, where we're talking about really doing that social work that has been the focus of this morning. And I call this a spectrum rather than a continuum, because it's not as if this is going to lead you to deeper or richer interpretive opportunities, because those can happen right here. You can have really rich interpretive experiences with a didactic program. But what I think of this spectrum as showing is a relinquishing of authority, or a sharing of authority. That's a better term. A sharing of authority with our audiences and their 10 billion years of human experience that they bring with them to our sites, right? So taking a look at this spectrum. So I think as we look at the spectrum, we're also moving from knowledge transfer to skill development to relationship building. And that's what's happening as we share authority with our audiences. So on the way here yesterday in the car, as I was driving to the airport, I heard one of my favorite podcasts, which is The Hidden Brain with Shankar Vedantam. If any of you listen to this podcast? It's pretty awesome. So he was talking about this research that was being done. So researchers helped research participants feel that they were an expert in a particular topic, and then they examined what happened and how those participants acted when they believed that they were an expert. And they were more closed-minded and more dogmatic in their interactions when they believed that they were experts. So when we start to share our authority with our visitors, with our communities, we can become more open and more inclusive. And that's the shift that we're looking for. That's the shift, the mindset shift that I think really kind of encapsulates where we are. All right, so the way that we have been approaching this as a way to teach this mindset shift is looking at facilitated dialogue as a practice. We've been working with the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience for about 3.5 years now, and using facilitated dialogue as a vehicle for teaching this skill set, because once you use this skill set of dialogue, you start to be changed by it. And we're going to look at the arc of dialogue. You're going to experience the arc of dialogue at the museum this afternoon with Lisa. Where's Lisa? Lisa. And she's going to take you through the 4 phases of an arc of dialogue. She's not going to call them out as you do it. If you want to learn more about what those 4 phases are and how they work together to scaffold or support an experience, come to one of our facilitated dialogue classes. We've got tons of material. There's a facilitated dialogue self-study toolkit that's on our website as well. So plenty of resources out there. All right, but we've been focusing on this because it's It's something that's very teachable. We can teach you the techniques, we can teach you how to build the questions. It's very accessible as well, and it can be used to build these skills that are necessary not only to facilitate dialogue, but to make this shift in lots of other audience-centered components as well. This is not to say that everything we do should be facilitated dialogue, or everyone in your park should be facilitating dialogue. Not everyone in your park can master this skill set. This is advanced. This is nuanced. So you need to hire intentionally, you need to train intentionally, you need to identify those who should be doing this work, and with which communities and with which audiences, because it's not necessarily true that everyone is skilled to do this. All right, so facilitated dialogue is one component of audience-centered experiences. And again, we've focused a lot of energy in the interpretive development program over the last 3 years in teaching facilitated dialogue because it has been a good vehicle. But it is one type of contributory experience. So there are other ways that you can have real-time experiences at your site that allow audiences to contribute, either at your site or online. And we'll take a look at some of those. So the Oakland Museum of California, which we got a chance to visit at the last Interpretation, Leadership, and Business Skills training in San Francisco. This is a museum that in 2009 rededicated themselves to being audience-centered. So they took away all their exhibits that were not audience-centered and re-envisioned them and reopened 3 years later. They've been reopened since 2012. And let me tell you, everything has an audience-centered component to it. So they have lots of opportunities for people to contribute by sharing their story, by sharing a memory, by voting and commenting on issues that are important to them, by being creative and playing, being invited to play within the museum and share what they create. And to contribute meaningfully. So can somebody read that out loud? I know it's a little fuzzy, so.
All of the baby pictures you see here came from people who grew up in California in the 1950s. The museum asked our community for their baby boomer portraits, and all the images we received are displayed on these walls.
All the images that they received are displayed on the walls. So these are pretty powerful ways to contribute in real time, to gather people's human experience and let them share that for the richness of everyone's experience. But why do we have contributory experiences? Why do we want to build those into our sites? Well, it's not only because it creates new connections with the institution, which is something that we inherently understand and we want to do, because we want to preserve our places. That's part of our mission. But we're also building new skills within our audiences. And this is well documented. You can go back to the Institute for Museum and Library Services 2009 report, and that was referenced in Lois's presentation. So these are skills like interacting with diverse people, evaluating sources of information, honing critical thinking skills, boosting creativity and innovation, and acting responsibly in their community. So these are real skills that help to build the value of our parks and our sites. Now, the problem with just ending audience-centered experiences at contributory projects, is that we're only reaching the people who are visiting our parks, either online or in real time. And as we know, the face of America is changing, and our visitation isn't. So how do we become relevant? Not just relevant, how do we become essential? Essential part of all Americans' lives. And that's where we actually have to amp up the audience-centered experience game by adding collaboration and co-creation. So a lot of you guys, when you were talking about your just one thing up here that you're currently doing, you talked about co-created and collaborative projects. But you probably didn't think of them necessarily as audience-centered because that wasn't a label that's been put on them. These are just projects that make good sense when you start building those relationships. Well, collaborative projects are really when the process of inviting in those other communities or experts or groups to help us meet our institutional needs so that we can tell the story better and more richly. Those collaborators act as consultants and allow us to tell new stories and reach new communities and bring a richness and a wholeness to our evolving American heritage. Co-creation is a little different, and I heard some of that today. Co-creation starts with the needs of others, and then they get matched to the needs of the institution or to the goals of that institution, right? So we go out and we seek out, somebody said that they are working with a children's home, is that right? Yes, right. So you're actively meeting the needs of those children in the children's home. You didn't start that project because it was meeting a very specific need of the park, right? But it matches. You're able to match that to your institution's goals, right? So those co-created projects build relationships that help us seek out and solve real problems. And they help us to build new bridges so that parks can be an essential element of society. So these are co-creation and collaboration are, if contribution is a casual fling, these are the committed relationship with your audiences, right? So actually, we're going to start with the casual fling because it's easier. It is. If you're taking baby steps and you're trying to get yourself warmed up to really what is being audience-centered, then looking at how you add contributory projects or programs or exhibits to your park is a good way to start because it is the least commitment for your institution. It helps you to retain the most power and authority as you ease into sharing power and authority with your audiences and your communities. So that's what we're going to be spending our time with over this afternoon. All right. So let's take a look at what makes a good contributory project. That you have to really define the purpose. Why are you asking people to contribute? Why are they going to say anything or write on a card or make a picture? What's the purpose of that? How is that helping them? How is that helping the institution? What's the purpose? And then what's the invitation? How is it clear what you're asking them to do? And then what's the support that you're providing? What's the scaffolding? So the scaffolding can be the content of your site, the interpretive content that helps provide a framework for them to understand what are you looking for, what's the background, what's the platform upon which I'm going to participate. And then also good design in helping them to understand how to participate. All right, so this is a really great example that was all over the Oakland Museum. So if you look at this picture, you see the little green icon up here. That's a hand that says, okay. So it's okay to touch, it's okay to play, it's okay to write. Those are throughout the museum where they want you to play. And it says contribute to the museum. You can't see that really clearly. All right, so you've got an icon that's helping you understand this is a time to contribute. You have a question that you're explicitly asked to ponder. And then you're told how to respond. You're supposed to vote. And then, add on top of that, great design. So great design that helps you understand how your contribution is going to be used immediately. So you can see it, right? And then to comment. How are you backing up why you made this choice? So So great design is very helpful in contributory projects. But you know what? It doesn't have to be expensive. This is from Angel Island Immigration Station. I think that might have cost about 30 cents for the printout and $2 for the frame, maybe $5 for the luggage tags, and it's really clear what you're supposed to do. So this is a bed frame from the beds that were throughout the immigration station, where people languished for months and sometimes years, waiting to be processed during the time of the Asian Exclusion Act. All right, and you still get rich content. I thank my mom for giving me a good life. To my parents who immigrated from Afghanistan, giving us first-generation Afghan Americans a better life. This one on the side says, thank my father for serving as a medic in the Marine Corps. So, think people are going to remember writing those tags after they leave? You think they're going to remember some of the tags that they read? Yeah. All right. So this is also at the Oakland Museum. So this is an invitation. Does it look inviting? You can even put on the flip-flops. You can go sit in the hot tub. You got an invitation through good design. You have scaffolding. You've got some rules here. Number 5 says, strike up a conversation with your hot tub neighbors, kick back, relax, and offer them a tumbler. It's not every day you're in a museum hot tub. So I think it's got some scaffolding. It's got an invitation. What for me was missing from this was the purpose. Why am I sitting in a hot tub talking to somebody? I don't get the purpose. I don't quite see the purpose here. And sometimes the purpose isn't immediately apparent. So in the one where you're voting, right? You've got dropping in your votes and you're writing the comments. So that didn't explicitly say, why are we having you vote and comment, right? But it's still helping you build those skills. It's still helping you with visual media literacy, for communication and collaboration, for all kinds of different skills are being built through, they're evaluating their assumptions about where their information comes from or what's valuable to them. Those are all valuable skills. This one was less apparent to me, and I didn't want to participate, right? So the purpose is important, and for me, really what helps me get to purpose, if I break it all down, to purpose, invitation, and even a scaffold, is a really good question. That, to me, is the most basic unit of being audience-centered, is getting the good question.